I appreciate all of you coming out today. Even the weather's kind of held reasonably well. I kept waiting for a 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock. The one thing about the Weather Channel is, your phone keeps pinging and waking you up. I forgot to turn it off. But fortunately, the rain's kind of held off. And by the way, this is the talk on innovation, in case anybody's, Dave might be here in the wrong place, So we have Graham Smith with us, Will Greg, and Bobby. Bobby, I've always called it. It's Robert Schuker. Yeah, I was like, I'd kill his name. I always have to go back and look at how it's spelled. It's not, how you normally. There's an extra C.
You're the first person to mess it up. Don't worry.
So I'll go. I'll talk. I'm just gonna. Here's kind of the way we're gonna do this. Just gonna introduce these guys, and they're gonna talk about their companies, ask them a few questions. Relative to innovation and working with their companies. But here's what's interesting when you talk about innovation, and for a lot of you guys who have been around me, entrepreneurship and innovation are these buzzwords that get thrown around a lot. And for those of you guys around me, I don't talk about entrepreneurship and innovation because I'm assuming you won't be around me if you're neither of those two. There's a lot of wannabes out there, and that's fine. But I think these guys, what's unique about this situation is two of these guys are working for companies that are publicly traded, and I'm curious to hear about innovation in a publicly traded environment. That could be a challenge. But let's talk about Graham for just a minute. He's a partner and owner, I guess, of Sage Smith Consulting, software company specializing in election management systems. He's developed web applications across a wide range of industries since 1999, everything from construction and healthcare to mobile gaming. Graham earned his degree from Clemson University and degree in economics with a minor in political science. Amazing, he's a software engineer today, Helping government entities, large and small, achieve efficiencies through technology has been a professional occupation, a personal passion for his over the last 2 decades. Lives in Charleston with his wife Kate, originally from Vermont, and they live on James Island for almost 10 years now, and are raising 2 boys, Calvin and Miles. Next, Will Greg is the VP of Solutions at Workiva. Will is originally from Columbia. Will graduated from Clemson with a degree in mechanical engineering and spent some time in Atlanta and Charlotte before returning to Charleston to head up a team that today stands at about 14 software engineers and right here at the flagship. Will resides in Daniel Island with his wife and 8-year-old daughter. And Workiva, and he'll talk about it, is a leading provider of complex business reporting software solutions, used by more than 60% of the Fortune 500 companies. That's just pretty impressive. Last but not least, Bobby is the director of mobile and emerging technology at AutoNation, the largest automotive dealership group in the country. Bobby's been writing software professionally since 1997, and for the last 11 years has focused primarily on mobile, and has had work shown in 3 Apple keynotes, and even been featured in an Apple commercial. That's amazing. Bobby was actually lucky enough to be one of the handful of software engineers to be invited to Apple to work on the Apple Watch before it was announced to the public. Bobby, I know you've got family here, and since I had the other 2, so you live in Somerville, wife and...
Yeah, wife and 2 girls.
2 girls, that's 2 girls, so wife. So I think it's, I just think it's interesting, just as a point of commonality, all 3 of these professionals, and we're delighted because they kind of inspire. These are the kind of guys that drive me. They're all residents of the flagship, so they all work right here with their teams. This is a future topic, that Liz and I are working on right now. They're all part of a remote and distributed team, which is a big trend right now among companies, large and small. Obviously, they can control themselves. 2 of them are Clemson graduates, basically, I think, and as I mentioned, 2 of them are leading innovation teams at publicly traded companies, AutoNation and Workiva. Workiva was Graham's company was started in 2005. Workiva, formerly Web Filings, was started in 2008 and has a market cap of $2.6 billion. Bobby, AutoNation basically was started in 1996 and has a market cap of 4.4 billion. Just to kind of give you some perspective in terms of market cap, if you guys don't give financial, Blackbaud's basically got a market cap of about 3.4 billion. So, we're setting Blackbaud sits somewhere between, Workiva and AutoNation. Workiva has about 1,450 employees, 1,421 on their filings. AutoNation has 26,000. And Sage Smith is very tightly held. It's 3 companies. So, in terms of revenue per employee, Sage Smith wins. So, with that, what I'd like to do is, and you guys know this isn't reasonably informal, so between questions, feel free to jump in. You won't hurt anybody's feelings if you ask, say anything, cut them off, that kind of thing. But what I'd like to do is let these guys, in their own words, talk about what their companies do. So we'll lead off with Graham.
Well, thanks for having us, Ernest. It's been a pleasure to speak to you guys today. So I'm usually off in my office, holed away, watching Workiva just grow around me. Sage Smith, as mentioned, is just 3 people, just my father, my brother, and I. And we, long time ago, were a subcontractor for New York City's Board of Elections. And we did something real crazy. We were on site and delivered on time, on budget, which in government isn't always the case. So when they decided to redo their systems, they asked us to bid on it, and we became the main sole contractor. And then we've grown from there in the New York area, because election law is state-based, and we'd love to continue to grow outside of there, but right now we're very locked in New York. But we do election management systems, so that's everything from poll worker recruitment, getting them signed up for training classes, scheduling them, getting them out to the poll sites. It's candidate filings and ballot preparation. It's consolidating the results at the end, all the paper votes, all the machine votes. And so all the stuff it takes for a city to run an election, just essentially it's like a huge wedding or sort of event. If anybody's been married and gone through all the fun stuff, fun stuff.
That's how I would describe it.
Together, you have to all for New York City. It's usually about 5 million voters show up. So for one day, you got 5 million people need to show up. All the equipment has to be there. Anything that goes wrong has to be seamlessly handled, and then you got to be able to turn it around and get all the equipment out because you don't own that space. It's a school or a church or somewhere, so you got to be able to turn it around and very quickly. A very large event. So whatever it takes on our end as consultants, we have I think 25 different products that we've built for the city of New York and beyond to help them manage their elections as seamlessly as possible.
Thanks. Just for the record, I did, after our last election fiasco in Charleston County, I did call them and the state to notify them that we've got somebody running the election commission, running things in New York with 5 million people. I think running it with 1 would be good. We never even got a call back. So, I do appreciate the innovation. For somebody who stood in line and encourages everybody to vote, making it seamless is very helpful. So, Will?
Let's see. Workiva started in 2008, and really what kind of kickstarted the company was public disclosure. So public companies filing with the SEC, that was our kind of center of mass. We really focused our energy on the kind of top 4,000 public filers. And, similar to Graham in a lot of ways, we were sort of disrupting about an 80-year-old business of financial printers working with these companies, and they pass back and forth paper documents or digital documents, which is only marginally better. And this was right about the time where the SEC implemented the XBRL data transparency rules, so that all that data now has to be meta tagged and people have to be able to search it. It has to be machine readable. And so the intersection of those things for us was an opportunity. We started building really rich, web applications that would run inside a browser in 2008, and that was really early to do that. So we used to sit in front of people and show them our software, and they would ask us how you install it. And they were really baffled when it was like a Chrome tab. As you'd probably imagine, a lot of the kind of componentry that you need to successfully solve that problem applies to a much broader set of problems around critical reporting for public and non-public companies. So fundamentally what we are is a really rich reporting application that lives in a browser. One of our philosophies is consumer UX for the enterprise. So when you look at our stuff, it looks more like something that got built by an Apple or something that got built by a Google, versus what people have become accustomed to with enterprise software, which is something that looks like it was built in the 80s. It kind of still expects Windows NT to run. And so that's it. So we have a pretty substantial total addressable market now. The company's continuing to grow to about $290-ish million in revenue. And the team here that we started back in September of 2017 built and launched a complement to our reporting suite called WData. We publicly announced that back in July of last year, and that's since grown pretty substantially for Workiva as well. So the team, as Graham alluded to, is also grown as a result of that success. So I'm incredibly excited about what we're going to look like in the next 2 years, and we're going to do everything right here.
A couple of points about Workiva. Their stock has almost doubled in value over the last 12 months, which is pretty impressive. And I think why
Don't look at it
why
today, by the way.
what's that?
The last 2 days have been.
The last 2 days, everybody's got.
Give it a week before you look at it.
Well, that's not the company's fault.
No. It's more of a broad market.
So that's the first, and the second thing I think is to see the impressive growth, and while the world seems to be running around talk about talent shortages, I kind of live my conversation about talent kind of is wrapped around how Will has managed his talent team to go from 1 to 14 in 18 months.
The last time we did, I was just thinking about it on the drive-in this morning. The last time we did one of these, we quadrupled the size of the team since the last one of these we did last year.
So, and when the principal is telling you, we're going to add 40-50 million of revenue, this is what the Charleston Tech Center is being built for, a cutting-edge building designed to showcase some of the best and brightest, and then basically attract, so Will's team can quadruple from where it is today at 14 employees. The next time, you're hearing from him. That seems to be the pace at which he's grown. And talk about growth, basically, now, Bobby's positioning, he's gone through the Skunkworks operation, proved to the company that, publicly traded company, the value they're bringing. So, Bobby, let's talk about where you are.
Hey, good morning. So at the heart of it, AutoNation is just a big legacy dealership group. We buy and service cars, and if any of you ever been in a dealership to get one, buy or service a vehicle, you know how fun of an experience that is and how innovative it is. So my background and some of our IT leadership was at Starwood before Marriott bought us, and we did a bunch of cool things there to kind of change the market. And so I got the phone call that said, hey, you want to come do that again in another legacy market? So we picked up and moved over. I'm from here, so they let me open an office here. And we're basically, my team's kind of the startup within the giant org. And we get to run ahead, prototype a bunch of things, figure it out quickly, and then we're effectively driving the future of the company. So in most instances with like mobile or emerging tech, so we do beyond mobile, we do like Alexa and all that kind of stuff. But if you're doing any type of that stuff, there's usually a giant back end that you can just plug into and you're icing on the cake and everything's good. As you can imagine with AutoNation, it's big, old, and legacy. That was not the case. So it took us a little bit of reworking, and we've been working on this giant platform to bring the whole company forward. We have offices, my office is here, we have members in New York, we have a couple people spread around the US. We don't have to have, we're remote friendly, we don't have to have them in Charleston. But at the core of it, when we're through with our mission, getting your vehicle serviced and or purchased at one of our stores will be something you're going to enjoy versus probably what you deal with today.
I thought, and we'll dive into this, and while we have you, we might want to go a little further, but one of the comments that Bobby made to me was, I thought, super interesting in terms of how you come to market. So he said in his previous company with Starwood, they took the innovation directly to the consumer. And it took a while for the associates in the company to basically get up to speed because they were not aware, because the company focused on the consumer. So he said, what we're doing differently, and I thought that was very poignant that he said, with AutoNation and all the innovation we're to bring it for the associates. And at 26,000 employees, you better basically make sure they know what the hell's going on before you take it to the consumer. So I thought that's a very interesting, very insightful. I mean, I thought.
I can touch on. So yeah, at Starwood, my baby project initially was a digital key. We called it keyless, so you could open your hotel.
Thank
so
you.
If you're a business
Thank
traveler, if you're a business traveler, then you know when you arrive at midnight after a flight and you're standing in line, you don't want to wait at the desk. You just want to go to your room. So that whole innovation and driving that was a big key to user experience. But we rolled it out to the consumer, and we got a lot of fanfare, and we were in keynotes. The associates weren't quite ready. They weren't properly trained. It was fast. We were trying to be first, and we misstepped a few times. So here we decided, hey, let's empower the associate, and once they're ready, we'll empower the consumer, and then when they roll in, it'll look like a buttery smooth experience, and we don't want to fall on our face with those initial steps like we did at Starwood.
So I think the next question I kind of want to get into with these guys is, I'm sure with what Graham's doing, there's other guys doing election software, so it's a big country. So the question that is to describe, more with a little more specific, be a little more specific on what is the innovation that they're bringing to their respective industry. They're in 3 totally different industries, and what is like the core area of their focus, So I think that would be.
I guess there are lots of companies that do election software. Not the biggest industry out there, but we do have competitors out there. And similar to what Will was saying, there is a lot of nice oldie moldy stuff that they have to install, and ours is not that. Ours is evergreen. We have both on-site, intranet-based. All of ours are web built. Some of them live within an intranet and are connected to the outside world, but some are cloud. Served up outside, depending on what type of data and what's going on. But basically, the innovation we brought was to try to do similar to what Will was saying, trying to bring this experience that we all have when we're all using all these websites, and they're all clean, crisp, and it's responsive. You can bring your own device. Try to bring that out and really leverage that in a space that was very oldie moldy, for lack of a better term. But they, so for example, they brought us in to help improve their call center. As on election day, things break down, or they need something delivered here, and they operate a call center, and it's a pretty big operation on and around election day. And so we started on that path, and we improved their call center software, and we were kind of patting ourselves on the back, saying, "This is good, this is helping." And then we thought, well, we've been designing all these systems for looking out to the consumer. We're designing nice systems for looking up your poll site and for recruiting poll workers that were all responsive design, mobile first design. And we said, well, let's empower some of your technicians and some of the other people involved, your what are called AD monitors, but your people who roam around from poll site to make sure everything's going well. And what we found is we built a whole suite dedicated called Election Responder that's available on a tablet or on a smartphone, and they can just go around from poll site to poll site, and they can log any issues they find and mark it resolved. The technicians, the people out in the field, have a lot more control over it. And then we found that the call center kept shrinking. So there was less and less. There's still one, and it's still very heavily used, but it just started to shrink more and more because if you empower the people out there, it gets done a lot faster, and you're not waiting for someone to call back and to verify, or was it this machine, was it that? Technicians sitting in a school saying, did you get the name of the poll worker who complained about this problem? Because I don't see the machine. Here we have, you scan barcodes on the machine, it pulls up the whole history of that machine, all kinds of tools to empower them. And then the next step beyond that was we said, let's have a tablet in all the poll sites. And that allows them to do all kinds of things, from poll worker check-ins. They just scan their badge and it checks them in. And then the central office, they can see, they can look in at all poll sites across their municipality, and they can see how many have shown up to work. They have a pool of standbys that we kind of model after. We have like an Uber type model where we can ping a poll worker and say, hey, there's a need to be over here and you're qualified for it. If you want to show up to this one.
Yeah, please get that in charge.
Yeah. So we can get the poll workers to where they need to be quickly and efficiently. And then the tablet in there, they can report problems as they need it. They can say, this person didn't show up to work. They can tap their little icon on there. And it'll immediately hit that standby pool, and either there'll be a room full of poll workers waiting, and they'll dispatch them, or we have a feature we'd love to go live with Uber style, that will hit their phones because they don't actually have to show up and wait. But so always pushing it, and I think for me personally, it's just a matter of I just love the challenge. I love trying to figure out. I hear we always follow what the client wants. And they've done some amazing innovating. But I love to try to sit there and say, let's just throw out all assumptions, and let's just try to get to the actual thing you're trying to do, and that is, have this well staffed, or have this equipment show up properly, and then just try to start from scratch. Look at other industries, what they're doing. I'm always looking at Chick-fil-A. What do you got? How are you moving people through this line? So I'm always trying to figure out what other industries are doing, and see if we can borrow some of that tech, and try to do everything we can to get the end result to be as positive for the voters.
I'm waiting for Chick-fil-A to put in a third line, by the way.
Yeah.
They've got two, and they actually work pretty well.
Absolutely.
Disney Fast Pass.
We do have that, actually. In New York City, they have the bands that they use to track. People can voluntarily grab a band, and similar to Disney's tracking on the thing there. So it shows how fast people are flowing through the lines of poll sites.
That's cool.
And I think in the next question, basically, some of the impediments to innovation, and it's very interesting because Graham's sitting in a similar space that I lived in, which is in government, and how do you, the forces against you, that kind of thing. So, but we'll get that in the next question. Let's just jump over to Bobby for a second, and in terms of specifically at this point in time, the focus and you when you talk about innovation, you're talking about you've got a global view, but you just kind of start to pursue in a very linear fashion. What's the innovation? What specifically that that you have to get out of the way?
Yeah, so for us, like I had alluded to, it was basically the data. So we have the grand vision, and coming from hospitality and having a loyalty play there, there's the fast pass kind of approach we want to do. You don't want to make an appointment, go through the thing, wait 2 weeks, show up to the service drive, and have 30 people in front of you that did not make an appointment. So we're playing with that whole experience and trying to improve that so that it is a faster, cleaner experience for those individuals who've done the work to make an appointment. In addition, automating the process and knowing where your vehicle is and adding transparency. So there's a very bad stigma in the market. So you bring in your vehicle, you bring it in for an oil change, and religiously there's $1,000 worth of other stuff you have to do to your vehicle. So adding some transparency of what we're recommending versus what's critical, and I think right now that kind of gets blended in some of the experience. So anything we can do to make the user trust us is big. So we've started out building a platform that starts initiating that conversation between the consumer and the associates. We're digitizing everything and going heavily on mobile. And then we're using a lot of AI and machine learning to do like predictive analysis. We've opened, this wasn't my project, but we opened distribution centers for just-in-time parts. So we have a bunch of parts, and then they're spread around the country, and then if you need a part and it's not here, we can immediately get it to our facility and improve that whole process. Really, for us, the name of the game is getting you in and getting you out. You're happier about it, we're happy about it. Loaners cost us money, so anything we can do with technology, I'm a firm believer in blending design and technology to actually improve the customer experience. It's kind of the Apple way, and I kind of chase that. We've done a lot that I can't tell you about, unfortunately, but I will tell you that turning a giant legacy industry has been difficult. But as Ernest alluded to, we kind of prototyped it for about a year, and they're all bought off on it at this point. So my team's running ahead. We have like other teams that I've said that are working with us, but there's a lot of industry or innovation coming to this space. And since we're the 800-pound gorilla of the automotive group, we have the ability to kind of make that the standard going forward.
That's awesome.
Thanks, all. Well, I'm sorry, you got a question?
Carvana
Yeah.
seemed to be really, and there's another knockoff of Carvana
Vroom.
out there. Yeah.
Yeah, we're a heavy investor in Vroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any involvement with Car Gurus? That was a product I used. I was curious. If
I
you
don't
guys had
think
any
we're.
time.
I think we have some partnerships for data, but I don't think that
Yeah.
we're like strictly partners with them.
I love everything you're saying, though.
Yeah.
I'll be a consumer of it.
Yeah, I wish we had stores here, but there's none in South Carolina.
I mean,
They're all
the
over
two problems you just described are problems I felt the very last time I took my car to the dealership. So
One of the challenges we've had is we're so forward thinking. We were like, oh, we can do this, and we, the robots and all this stuff, and they're like, bring it back. We're a publicly traded company, so we have to kind of walk before we run. But I will say that the appetite at this giant legacy company is big on innovation.
that's awesome.
Well,
Sure. Was there a question?
I'm sorry.
Estonia.
What's that?
Estonia.
Yeah.
100% of their voting is by mobile,
Yep.
using blockchain technology.
Yeah.
Why can't we do that in the United States?
Well, that's a very, very fun conversation.
I know.
I'm actually a huge fan of, and this is awesome at a tech and innovation talk, but I'm a huge fan of paper. I think at the
Job security.
That's right. Well, it's a easy thing to audit, and until there's
unless you have paper. Chads.
Yeah, right. And we'll all be voting on paper this November here in South Carolina. So we'll all get a paper ballot. We'll go in and we'll be sending it into a machine that'll be the same. I think it's very much the same front end touch screen that you're used to. And at the end, it'll print out, and you'll drop that in a scanner, and so that'll actually drop into a lockbox. And that's where the one thing that paper has over even blockchain. I'm a big proponent of using blockchain in elections, but at the end of the day, you've got these papers that drop into a ballot box, and you've got police monitoring it. It goes, locks up. They put a seal over it, a zip tie, and then they ship it off to a secure warehouse. And then when you're required by law to do an audit, so you get those results in fast, the digital results in very fast, and you're able to tell the candidates if this one's over, they can declare victory, or this is going to be a close one. We're going to have to take a close look. But by law, you have to you always, before you can certify, have to pull a certain percentage of the paper and audit the digital system, and that greatly increases the security there.
So you think that we won't have a paperless system for voting because of that process?
It's something a lot of people have tried, and I think there'll be continued innovation in it. But as the technology stands today, nothing can beat paper at this point, and at least in my experience. I've seen a lot of systems out there, and it's a very difficult thing. We've heard a lot of times, banking can do it, but with your bank, there's both sides of the ledger there, and your bank knows who you are, and they know your transactions, and you can compare that with your own experience and say, I didn't do this, I didn't do this. But in elections, if we want a private vote and a secure vote, that's where things get tricky. where you've kind of decoupled yourself so that no one on the other side of the fence knows you cast this ballot. That's where things get very difficult and easier to for people to game the system. And so paper at least it drops into that ballot, and a judge can say, all right, pull out all the ballots from this poll site or this district, and we're going to go through them all by hand because they didn't like such and such happening, or they're worried about something.
Interesting.
What was the question again?
So, from a broad, so let's talk about business.
What's the innovation?
Yeah, so it's business filings.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a tremendous number of business filings.
Yep.
What is what's the area y'all are focused on, and that is so needed by these Fortune 500 companies?
Yeah, so I'll touch on 2 points. The first one was one that Bobby kind of mentioned, but we have a really similar model, which, the way I look at, what we're doing from an innovation perspective is there's a business model innovation, which is, I think, the one that we're really excited about. It's the one our company's really excited about. We also have a product innovation. That's another thing that we're all really excited about, and I guess I'll kind of talk a little bit about both of them briefly. The first is like Bobby. I had the experience of starting with Workiva when we were about 80 people, 50 people, something like that. We were a pretty small company at the time. We had $0 in revenue, with these grand ambitions of being this wonderfully successful public company, but we hadn't done anything yet. It's like easy to say that. It's harder to do it. And we grew exceptionally fast through 2011 to 2013-ish. And the nature of growth, and I think a year ago when I talked in another one of these things, I talked about it a little bit, but the nature of growth, and Bobby's probably seen this too, is you kind of have to decide which side of the spectrum you want to be on. Do you want to be highly controlled, but that's going to impede the pace of growth because you have to make very explicit decisions along the path that are going to kind of align with your grand vision, or you can kind of loosen the reins a little bit and say, look, we're going to go really fast, we're going to make some mistakes, we're going to acknowledge those mistakes, we'll come back and fix them later. Because right now we have a market opportunity that is going to pass us by if we don't get aggressive. And I always tell my guys, the analogy I always use, because I'm a kiteboarder, is it's like paddling into a wave. And you're kind of sitting out there and you're on the board and you're waiting and you kind of see the wave building and you do everything about what you do is sort of building in preparation for this wave. And in technology, that wave hits, you only catch it, you have one chance to catch it. If you miss it, it's gone. And so that means you could squander $10 million or $30 million of investment. It means you could, you could lose 60 or 80 or 100 jobs, which I've seen happen here, consistently. And so that's the nature of innovation, unfortunately, is that wave comes and it goes, and you better catch it. And so, as Workiva biased appropriately on that, which was let's get aggressive, let's catch the wave. We did. Then we had to kind of look back and sort of retro ourselves and say, okay, what went really well? What didn't go so well? Where do we have control? Where are we still operating like a startup as a almost $3 billion public company, and that doesn't work? And frankly, where are we operating like a big company where we should be operating like a startup? And so one of the conversations we had in 2017 is I kind of put together this business plan for a Skunk Works style team because I'd grown up through that organization and operated in just about every part of the software company you can operate in, and that was all with the desire to learn how to really build and scale these operations. I had this really unique knowledge, which was I kind of know how every part of our business works really well at scale. And so this hypothesis was, well, we can take all of what we know about how we operate at scale, we can sort of package that down to this little micro unit, and then we can take all the learnings and we can do things at probably 1/10 of the expense and probably 10 times as fast. And these numbers really aren't that far off. I mean, what this team has been able to achieve with 2 people and $1 million of seed capital was kind of how I said, look, treat us like this is a venture-backed investment. You're going to give us $1 million of seed capital. We're going to go produce a product. We're going to ship, find some customers. We're going to generate some revenue, and we're going to come back and ask for a Series A round, right? And so my relationship, I report to our CEO, and it's very much like it's, hey, can I have some money to hire people? It's no. I have a business to run, right? I just booked $10 million of revenue, so I'm going to go hire 40 people, right? That's kind of the nature of the relationship. So I think there's a business model innovation. I'll tell you, for the company, it's been split, right? It really it divides a company when you do something like this. And because there's people who've been here for a long time, and they go, well, it's my job to innovate, and why are these guys innovating, right? Or hey, why am I stuck building the legacy thing or dealing with the migration or all the hard things that happen when you're a big public company? All that stuff's incredibly important, and it's just as important as what we do. But finding those people who are dynamic enough to kind of jump in and do these really innovative kind of very iterative things, there's a certain, people are just wired for that, right? I mean, people are wired for growth, and they're wired for scale. Very few people are wired for both, which is why CEOs get swapped out in companies when they scale. Occasionally there are people that do it, but it's rare. So anyway, that I think the business model innovation piece is really exciting to me, because really what we're trending towards is something that looks a little bit like a Y Combinator inside of a company. Like Bobby mentioned, a startup inside a company, and I often describe it to people the same way. I'll say we're kind of the startup within the startup, although it's hard to say that Workiva is really a startup anymore. But what I want to see is, I actually want to see a VC inside a startup. That's the future vision I have for the business model innovation, which is, let's build our own Y Combinator. Let's build our own Techstars. Let's build it inside of our own company. Let's invest in our own talent. Let's invest in our own people. Let's give them opportunities. And I've seen companies do that. A lot of our partner companies, I've seen do that really successful. SAP has a really interesting innovation model where they empower people. Adobe does it really well. They've sort of democratized innovation in the company. And so there's a really bunch of very cool companies and teams and business models that have taken advantage of that. So that's kind of the business model side. I think on the product side, similar to Graham, I guess our customers, you think about a typical kind of Fortune 500 customer, they all want to be innovative, but they all get in their own way of being innovative, right? And I think both of us working for companies of that scale, know what that's like and have experienced that. And so in some ways, there is a finite amount of technology that you can put in front of somebody that they'll be able to consume reasonably, right? It's like we could say, oh, we're going to go do all of this crazy stuff, and our consumers would kind of go, I don't know what to do with this. So one of the biggest challenges we have is we have to be really innovative, but our delivery mechanism, of that technology has to be very, very strategic, because the customer can't feel like it's too innovative. It's got to be just innovative enough that they can embrace it and adopt it and be successful with it without being so innovative that it freaks them out and they've got to go do 90,000 security audits and vendor evaluations and all that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of a unique challenge. And so what this group has done, if you think about companies, we often describe our business as connected reporting. And so if another way to say that is sort of data in a normal enterprise data, this as a source kind of creates demand for this reporting layer. Well, we sell a really great reporting experience. So when we first stood up the team in Charleston, it was like, well, how can we create better data sources for that reporting experience, right? Let's move upstream. And what this group's done is pretty cool. We've gone into these companies where they've had a lot of legacy technology around enterprise data warehouses and data management, and a lot of those practices are, some of them are fairly modern, a lot of them archaic. And we're coming in with this really easy, business user-friendly kind of snap-in architecture for, integration platform as a service. We can handle huge volumes of data because our whole backend runs on Presto, which is a technology that Facebook open source. It's just a big MapReduce query engine. If you guys have heard of Hadoop, it's the most modern version of that. And so that gives us the ability to handle, for a company that, let's say, I'll give you a specific example. I can't say the company name, but we had a company that came to us the other day and they said, can you guys handle 10 billion records, transactions, because they're dealing with transactional level detail. And one of our support people had reached out hey guys, I'm sure this is probably crazy, but this person wants to put 10 billion records in. Dustin, kind of our mad scientist in our office, is do it, we're ready. Tell him 100 billion, we're ready. He's kind of licking his chops. And so we've done these things to kind of set us up for super scale, and we're very much disrupting that space right now. And so the hard part about innovation is you have to teach people how to think about it. And for us, I've been through this twice now. I've been through this in 2011 when we were trying to teach Fortune 500 companies how to move to the cloud. And the first technology purchase they ever made that was a legitimate, true cloud product, for the most part, I would say for 40% of our customers, was us. And not only was that their first purchase of a piece of software that ran in the cloud, which they didn't trust and was inherently misunderstood, but they put their pre-release public financial information in there, right? The thing that can sync companies, the thing that can create, billions or tens of billions of dollars in, market cap differential in a day. And we had to fight through that. And so now we're just kind of I keep telling guys again, it's like, we're just fighting through that again. It's the same. It's not the same challenge, but we should expect to feel the same way. Those first 100 accounts are a slog. You have to educate people. When you're doing something that's, transformational, they don't just get it. You have to explain it. And so it's been really, really fun. And I rambled for a minute, so sorry about that.
Well, I mean, I
We ran
think
into
that
the same transformational challenges internally and externally. Our prototype platform that we rolled out, we put a lot of features in there, and we were even told, whoa, guys, there's a lot of stuff in here. We need to take this one, because like everybody in this room is used to the Uber experience and everything kind of being automated. The industry that we deal with is not. So both internally and externally, our customers, we're having to really walk a fine line between giving everybody in this room the experience they want without upsetting the people who are used to it being the old way.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Hi, my name is Thomas Heath. One of the hats I wear is I'm a community organizer with 1 Million Cups Charleston. So we're all about breaking down the barriers to entrepreneurialism. So a lot of the conversations I'm having now with people that are growing their business and growing their teams is around talent. So I have a two-part question. What's your bigger challenge? Talent attraction or talent retention? And what could we be doing as a community or as a city to help you address that challenge?
Pass that one out. That's just the three of us. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can start, Bobby.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll add.
I would say the attraction part. I think in some ways the retention part is kind of on me, right? And in a lot of ways the attraction part is on me too. I mean, Ernest and I talk about this a lot. Like, it's fine to kind of say, like, for us to go, well, the community's not doing enough for us, but a little bit of personal accountability would say it's my job to go hire people. It's my job to attract people. It's my job to retain people. It's my job to build culture, right? That's on me. That's not on anybody else. And so, when we showed up, I just kind of rolled up my sleeves and, we're figuring it out. And, we're working with some great people like Thomas but, in a lot of ways, I think it's up to all of us. There's only so much the community can do. At some point, guys like Bobby and I and Graham have to, and everybody in this room, we've got to go find people. We've got to go get people excited about coming to work for us and our causes. We've got to get people excited about the opportunities they have if we're successful to grow with us and to grow with our teams. And that's a huge part of what we talk about. So,
Bobby wanted to answer, but Thomas, let me, because we're running tight on time. This is a topic we always hear from people talk about lack of talent and everything else. So we're going to have a future sort of Fridays. Well, I'm going to bring in 2 people, basically talk about talent, and then 2 people in companies who have done it. And I'm seeing this trend where the companies that go after it get it. The companies are basically crying about it. The woe is me. We need more talent. That's all they did. Drop these broad statements. It's kind of the half-empty bullshit you hear in this town. But I look at Will, basically, how do you get from 1 to 14? I look at, Boomtown, how do you go from, 2 to 300? So this is what I tell, guys who are looking to relocate to other communities. It's like the guys are crying about talent. I mean, I was with the CEO of Blackbaud, and he says, well, the comment I made to him was, I said, people don't understand why CEOs are brought in. They run for a specific purpose. But I said, Mark, in the current situation, it's the most stable, Blackbaud's the most stable that it's been since I've set my eyes on it when it was after Tony Bach and those guys sold it. It's the most stable. But if you look at the role, what his role is today, and he says, comment he made to me is, we're attracting some people back into the company. So I always tell these kids, I said, don't go piss off your employer because you might go back to, the Spark benefit focus thing. I mean, they all jumped and then basically some of them jumped back. So, this is still a kind of small, but that is that's something I'd like to spend, sort of, I want to hear from both sides and, sort of play this moderator because I'm hearing, it's the empty vessel. Just go around talking about the lack of talent. Wait a minute, what do you know? And you really, are you going to some of these events? Basically, you can actually harvest some. Are you going to do that kind of thing? But we will.
Future programming.
Yeah, I do. But I want to hear from Bobby because this is an issue that's very real to him. he's in an office, but he's designed for 6, and he's going to do an office for 14. So guess what? He's not going there by accident.
Yeah, so there's actually quite a bit of talent that we found in the area. Really, you have to, not to disparage government contracting or anything, but it's not usually as creative as some of the stuff we get to run ahead and do.
Yeah.
And as long as you can put your innovative projects in front of people, typically they're very interested in doing something beyond just moving data around. We do move a lot of data around, but it's been like peeling those people out. We're Spark alums, so we kind of knew that kind of fun model in doing innovative work. So that was something, and we've kind of kept that culture without going full Spark, but just make the work very interesting, move fast and those kind of things that you've heard everybody talk about. But bring people in. We're now to the point now where we're hiring people, and before we had enough office space, I was having to divert them to our New York office. But now we're expanding, and I'm actually bringing them in. So I think the more we bring talent into the area, and if somebody leaves and starts another company, I think that's still good because we have more than just your SAICs and all those of the area.
Yeah.
So like we will have more non-government work that's, again, I'm not disparaging government work, but creative work, I should say.
I mean, so what I heard is, which I think is smart, is you using innovation messaging as a talent attraction tool.
Yes,
Yeah, that's
exactly.
great.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like the conversation we have with a lot of people is, to Bobby's point, I think like a good talent, well, really just a good ecosystem for technology in general, I think, is that you've got companies at every stage of maturity. And Charleston's interesting because the way the Charleston tech scene got built was a couple kind of major movements and big company starts. And so we didn't grow up the same way a lot of tech communities started up, where they all started at the same level, right? It was kind of survival of the fittest. And so there's that maturation and attrition, and that kind of curve just creates like a really balanced, group of companies. And we sort of just plunked in a couple huge ones and said, oh, cool, we're there. And it's like, no. So what happens is those companies over time will see talent and guys like Bobby in town that will go do other things and build other things. And then so we're going to kind of go, from the top down versus from the bottom up, I think, on the talent things. I'm starting to see that. I mean, you start to see even little companies like ours, and I feel the exact same way that Bobby does. I think if someone in our office had a burning desire to go start something they were really excited about and they believed in it 100% that they were going to go build a successful company around it, I would encourage them to do it, and I think it's a net win for the community to do that. It's a net win for us over time, because if they go build a really successful company, guess what? They create a bigger talent pool for all of us.
Katie, real quick.
Just seeing the perspective from small startup to now I'm at a bigger company, how do you innovate for a small startup when you have this idea as a CEO and you have this time for your employees to innovate, but you have this end goal of, okay, I have these 3 things I really want to be done. How do you create that space of innovation without kind of, forcing the idea to your associates?
I have a really brief answer to that question. Like a lot like Graham, I think he was sort of describing this from like a consumer side. I think the same way with our engineers, and I always tell our product managers this too. It's like your job is to define the problem. Their job is to figure out what the solution is, right? And I think for people that operate that, I mean, I'm an engineer too, and those of us that are builders, there's some insatiable drive to go solve a problem if someone sits in front of you, right? And you just can't stop until it's done. It's like this
Squirrel.
Yes, yeah, it's exactly like that's how I feel sometimes. It's like everything else is blinding. You just tunnel vision, and I think a lot of people get people who could be really successful and really really talented from from an engineering perspective or anything really get stifled by people trying to place solutions in front of them. So we focus on the problems. How do we define the space we're in? How do we define how the customer's experience could be transformed if we could make it better for them? How do they describe the problems? And then let's go be creative. Let's give people the freedom to be creative. It happens all the time. For example, to your very point, we'll walk through the office and we'll see some little feature or something, and I'll go, hey, could we just do this? Again, I'm like straight to the solution. And I'd say the vast majority of the time, my solution's not the best one. It's actually somebody else in the office that goes, yeah, we could do it that way, or we could do it this way. man, I like your way a lot better. Let's do it that way.
The joke that I always use when these product owners will come to me and they're like, we want flying cars. I'm like, okay, that's going to be like 10 years of work. But I can give you hovering cars in like 6 months.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's really all I need. So it's kind of this like negotiation between what they think they want and then focusing really on the outcome versus, like you said, the solution.
That's a great point.
Yeah, outcome is certainly the way we do it, and I won't disparage government because those are all my clients. And they've actually been we've had amazing clients.
Yeah, and you disparaging.
And we've had some really good partners within the governments and our clients themselves. So we've had some buy-in initially saying, we'll absolutely tackle that. Call center being a good example. And then they already had technicians out there that they would call back and forth, and then we kind of just incrementally say, what about this? What about this? And then it's some of it's a very easy sell. When people are using all these apps for their daily lives, and they're ordering out food, or they're doing all these kind of things, it's an easy sell to be, you see somebody say, we could do that with your technician. He could be out there solving these problems, or AD monitor, or she could be entering all this and very quickly scanning barcodes. So there's no data entry. So it's having good partners and I think incrementally and being focused on the end solution. That's a good way to put it.
Just back to kind of the workforce development a little bit. I know we can squirrel way away on that, but thinking innovatively, a lot of times I think from a government perspective, they put these unrealistic requirements on people and then say we can't find the workforce.
Yeah.
Internally, to you guys, do you find it better to put those expectations out there and see what you get, or build the people up from inside? Meaning, you hire somebody that's got good data science, but you need to teach them this new tool type situation. Like, what do you put in place in your company's mindset to build your workforce up instead of saying, here's my requirements?
For us, we do try to, perspective is kind of reality, so we do try to say, like, here's what the goal that we're going for, and we do have some latitude to move people. They're smart people and they're great at this. They typically can get bored, so we tend to give them a little bit of latitude to move around just so everything stays creative and they stay invested. And we allow them to make decisions too, because if they feel invested, we feel like they're better off and they're going to be more likely to stay. As far as like data science versus, if it's something broadly different, we do have to kind of find our way in there, but for the most part, we have latitude to allow them to move around a bit.
Yeah, we on our side, I think what we've seen is like kind of half and half on that. Like they're to the earlier point around the government stuff. There's not a lot of super modern multi-tenant architectures in government where people are used to doing high volume type stuff. And so one of the things that's been interesting for us is we get a lot of people who are very experienced building a very specific type of software for a very, very specific type of customer. But it's not really consistent with kind of the rest of the commercial world in terms of how like modern technology stacks are being built. And so sometimes people are experienced and just talented enough and creative enough and hungry enough to kind of bridge that gap on their own. And we've got, I bet half the team in the office looks like that. And again, I think, personal accountability, right? I think we have a responsibility. If we want people to work in a certain way or have a certain set of experience, it's on us to be able to build people in that way. There's other scenarios where we've gotten people who just flat out didn't have, the raw skill or horsepower to get there. And so I think it's a little bit of both. I think we have to, knowing when we came here, it's not like this isn't like Denver for us, right? Where I can, I could put a sticky note on a wall in Denver and say I'm hiring an engineer, and I have 50 people lining up out the door, right? And this is different. You have to be a little more thoughtful and strategic. So I think we try to find those little wedges of talent where people have the right threads of experience that we can kind of take that and weave it into something that we need.
Exactly.
Well, we're about out of time, so I want to, I'm standing over here basically thinking to myself, man, I could, I should just peel on these guys one at a time and have a fireside chat. If they don't have a dog, bring my dog and put it next to them. But I guess sometimes, you have these moments where you kind of realize, why do you do what you do? And I'm sitting over here going, this is why I do what I do, because, I interact with these guys on a daily basis and minimize the bullshit, that's kind of floating around out there. You guys know. It's not about innovation and talking about entrepreneurship. It's all about execution. And what these guys are doing, executing at a very high level and building our community brand. And so what I've got to do is on my side, I've got to have assets that kind of match up with their side. And I think that makes both of us worthy, so to speak. You're just sitting over there with a sort of a gum in mind. And just for perspective, I was the startup within the city of Charleston. The unspoken rule was don't go anywhere near that guy. He's doing wonderful things. I reported directly to the mayor, and it was kind of fun. And I did it, for 28 years. I was shadowing for about 2 years, and then basically 26 years of just doing what I thought was the right thing. So we were able to grow the city, and then basically start with this. But these are the folks who are in our sights right now. Guys like Michael, dropped in a week after he drops from Chicago. He's over here, and I appreciate you being here, basically offering intelligence of how that ecosystem operates. We've got a kid who's 18 who decided he's not going to go to college because he isn't focused. He's going to go for physics, but he's not focused. So he's actually reworking our Charleston Works platform, which is going to be amazing when we come out of it. So I think from my standpoint, we were in the weeds for about a year to develop the Charleston Tech Center, and that was just a brutal exercise in itself. And on a side note, we should probably bring Bob in at some point. Both Will and Graham serve on our board, so I get further input from these guys. When I've got some doubts about things. But the reality is the community has grown. It's grown well, and now we're able to attract. One of the topics that we're going to do is, so Liz put out something that I got in my inbox this week about the Harvard study about distributed teams, and it's gone from a luxury to almost a saying, you'll build a better company if you've got distributed teams, and that was part of the question. But we'll have maybe one or two of you guys back. The idea of what we're seeing is the Charleston Tech Center is, and I don't know who alluded to this by the top down. I'm not turning my back, and this was at the board. I'm not turning my back at the local startups, but the reality is that national and international companies are opening outposts around town. So they'll find a unicorn wherever the hell they are, and then they'll kind of stand up. So Workday is here with 17 employees. Most people don't even know that. They're over there 1 block from the beach, and Barnes was at Blackbaud, didn't like what was going on with the previous CEO, so he just left and started the shop. That kind of thing. They don't do a single bit of business in South Carolina, but they're all based here. So this is the kind of stuff. What's happening is you're seeing this next cycle. And with the Tech Center, it's designed to basically accommodate, come in, no friction. You're in New York. Last year inquiries, companies in New York want to expand out of Charleston. They look at the Southeast to expand as it gets ridiculously expensive. Things that matter to us are the education system, and to me, the education system, talent, and the airport. I mean, now we've got great connections, and getting better, so that plays a big role. But the ecosystem overall is kind of getting better. But I think these guys are, living, they're in the trenches, kind of living it. So this is who you want to hear from, and I certainly appreciate you guys coming out. And for those of you, I don't know. I know Bobby stays, they all stay stupidly busy, but they're all accessible. So I think if you have something specific that you might want to ask or talk about, basically they're here. Or just feel free to drop by. Dave is here. He's part of Samet, the general contractor, is building our building, and we'll starting this probably next week. We'll start basically just monthly posts and construction updates. Things are going very well. I decided yesterday, and I certainly appreciate it. But we're going to have, the tech community is going to have a hell of a landmark for a young industry that it is, and we'll have a venue basically where everybody can be seated, and some of the little extra capacity and that kind of thing. But certainly appreciate it. Thanks you guys for taking the time.
Sure, thanks for having us.